You have to be willing to go into the office, go talk to the agents, go, ask them, hey, can I sit with you on an open house? Can I go on a listing appointment with you or something? Just so you can kind of get a feel for what does that look like, and how does that, and just kind of be a shadow. I mean, and I really do believe going into the office too. I mean, and I think that just in general business with all the at-home work, these employees don't get
Yeah.
what they need when they're just starting off. They're not getting what they
You
need
don't
by
know what
sitting
you
at
don't
home.
know. Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. I have a former high school secretary that is now a successful real estate agent. She's consistently on the short list for production at her brokerage at Coldwell Banker Vanguard Realty. With over 10 years of experience as a real estate agent, she prides herself in her client-centric approach, patience, responsiveness, and attention to details. This cornerstone of the best in real estate. I am excited to hear her story, her experiences, and her real estate journey. Let's welcome Cindy Bleiel to the show. I got it right.
Thank
Did I
you,
get it right?
Tracy. Yes, Bleiel.
I'm glad to have you on. Obviously I go through everyone's social media, and I start at LinkedIn, which you have a great LinkedIn profile. Too many real estate agents don't. So those listening right now, if you don't have a good LinkedIn profile, you need to, because people are searching you. We're going to talk about that today and the importance of creating content. But, curious about your story, and then you're going from a high school secretary, which I think we all know, have all experienced a high school secretary at some time in our lives, to, obviously what branched you over into real estate. Now, I'm really curious about that story. And then, taking it from, you pretty much, look, if I saw correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, your LinkedIn, you had almost 20 years of being in that administrative assistant
Yes.
area.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm really curious how you've taken that and gone into real estate. But welcome to the show, and tell us a little about growing up in Pennsylvania.
Yes, I am originally born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So loved it there. I mean, met my husband there. That was great. Had my kids there, but started off in suburban areas, and then my family decided they wanted to move out to a small farm. So
I kind of want to do that right now myself.
right. Although, you're young, and I feel like they tricked you. They go, do you want a horse? And what kid doesn't want a horse?
Right.
You're
Right.
like, yes, I want a horse. Do you know what work comes with getting a
Yeah.
horse?
Do you know what time you got to get up?
So I got, but that was fine. I mean, we loved it. We moved out to a small farm, 14 acres. I got a horse. My brother got a horse, and we had cows, and eventually got away from having the horse, and we were showing animals at the county fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of been through that whole animal thing.
Well, that's an interesting part. Obviously, it's not on your LinkedIn, that little part. Yeah, people don't realize what people do when they live on farm. Even the smallest of farms. You just got maybe a few cows, maybe a couple horses, but you got to get up early in the morning,
Yes.
feed the chickens, whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, people didn't realize, I don't think, unless you really knew me, that before I even got to school, I had spent an hour at the barn
Mm-hmm.
mucking stalls, feeding the animals, getting ready, and then I came up and got myself together and went off to school.
And this is still in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So there's a good part of the year where it's not so fun to get up before the sun.
No, you're
Yeah.
putting your boots on, your heavy coats, you're chipping ice off water pails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting down there. But that was, my brother and I split it. He'd do 1 week, I'd do another week, and then you got home and do it over.
Yeah. Wow.
So-
Well, we were talking about grit earlier. That takes a lot of grit and a lot of commitment. There's no doubt about it. I'm sure there's some mornings where your parents are like, get your butts out of bed. You got to get going. Go. The horses are hungry.
I have to say, we really got ourselves up and did it.
We're committed.
They were still sleeping, and I remember one time, the cow was having a calf, and I was down there feeding. I'm like, oh my gosh, and it was not doing well, and I ran up and woke my parents up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
You got to come down
Yeah.
and help this cow have his calf. So,
Wow.
yeah, and then when I showed steers at the county fair, it's like, You just don't go and get a steer and then show it. You have to walk it miles each day and train it, and there's a lot that goes into it, and so you have to be committed to that.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I know. So yeah.
So if I saw but you eventually moved to South Carolina.
So yes. So like I said, I met my husband in Pittsburgh. We got married. We had kids. He was more wanting to move at first than I was. I was still liking being close to family with the kids. But I finally said, okay, if we're gonna move, I want to move somewhere south. I don't want to stay in the cold weather. So we ended up in South Carolina, in the Columbia area of South Carolina. And we loved it there. The kids loved it there, and it was great. But his job went into, he works for a bank, and the job went into the bank went into receivership. So he ended up needing a job, which brought us to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So now we've been here ever since, 17 years.
All right, so that puts us back to that's I guess your first job when you come here is working for Clay County. If I doing
Yes, that is correct.
calculation and remembering what was on LinkedIn there for you.
Yes, that is correct.
Right. So, but as a young Cindy, 18, 19 years old, what did you vision yourself as from a career standpoint, at that time?
So at that point, back in those days, people were going either, a business route, college route, business, or trade school.
Right.
And I wasn't certain I was going to college, so I kind of went the business route. And I did go to a very well-known business school in downtown Pittsburgh and decided to go that route. That's what put me into the administrative assistant work. And I kind of just grew through that, working many years in companies throughout Pittsburgh that kind of grew my background, grew my knowledge. And then I decided to kind of stay home a little bit with the kids.
Yeah.
So I did some odds and ends things, just, never really not working, but just not working different hours so that I could be with the kids during the day, and my husband had them at night and the weekends and whatnot. And so we were always there for them, but I would pick up some other jobs. And at one point in South Carolina, I even took pictures and photography for real estate agents.
Oh, so you got a little taste at that? Was that kind of your first taste of
real estate? Yes.
Some of what a real estate agent's doing?
Yes.
Okay. No one in the family has been a real estate agent before or anything like that? Okay.
No.
That water is for you in case you need it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know you got your cup too. So, well, Madam Me cups. Thank you. Let me talk about my sponsor always here. As everyone knows, Remy Graphics makes these great mugs for me. You've got a hot pink one in there for you in your bag.
Nice. All right.
But Remy Graphics, RemyGraphics.com. They're local. She'll make one-offs for you. She has many, many other laser engraved gifts. So if you want to have one, customize it for your buyer or seller, put their name on it, so they'll always remember it came from you, and they'll never throw their name away. So those there. But Remy Graphics, RemyGraphics.com. There. You're working at, I'm going to just kind of broad term, and maybe there was different roles at different companies. You can describe it to us, but administrative assistant. I think everyone has a stereotypical thing of it, but actually when you go to every office, an administrative assistant does a lot of different things, depending on what company they're working for, who they're working for, what roles, it's like, today we talk about getting a virtual assistant. Well, what do you want that virtual assistant? Well, for me, I want them to do this. For someone else, it could be totally different. What are some of those things that you did that, and experiences that you can bring forward to what you're doing now? And it could be just simply as things of like organization, but also, some of the challenges that you had in that role there that you had to break through, like dealing with people.
Right.
Yeah.
So, when I worked in Pittsburgh, I worked at a company for 10 years and held many different roles while I was there, and working for different people. I worked on a team where I had 3 different supervisors, and so they all had their different challenges that they wanted, and you had to be able to get them all done. I can remember one time I had my main boss had me in taking some notes for a meeting so that I could write the minutes out, come out, and I have another one that's she's, where have you been? I need to get this done. And I'm like, okay, what do you need? Let's get it done.
Yeah.
So just kind of being able to be calm about it and take their anxiousness and diffuse it down to, okay, that's fine. I'm here now. What can we do? Let's get it done. Working in the school system, you're working with, not only the kids coming up to you, but multiple parents coming in with different, they're either upset, they're happy, they're trying to pick up a kid that's sick, and just trying to work with all of the differences, and, and then working with the different generations of the kids. And
Did you find yourself, and this is definitely going to be relatable right into why you're a good real estate agent, you've kind of have to be that even keel. Like you're saying, you have one person that you're supposedly reporting to is asking you to take notes for meetings so you can put out the minutes or whatever afterwards. But then you walk out and this other person who doesn't realize that they're sharing you with somebody else. You're not just their assistant,
Right.
you're assistants to others. And, again, they're under pressure from whatever. The parents are under some sort of pressure, whatever, who knows, the things we deal with in life, and we come in and sometimes they're a little bit kind of taken out on you, but it sounds like you kind of learned how to brush it off, water off the duck's back, so to speak, to realize they're not actually angry at you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, they're not. They're not mad at you. They're not angry with you. They're going through their own situations and what they're going through. And I'm just there to keep it calm and, okay, how may I help you? Let's get through this. We can do this. Just if you give me the information, let me get your kid, let me get this done. And then there's times that you're like, okay, well, I don't have the answer to that, but you know what? I know where I can get that answer. And I'm not one that just brushes them off and says, go see this person. I was more like, well, this person can answer your question, but I also want to know the answer to the question.
Right.
Because I want to be prepared the next time
Sure.
somebody asks me this question.
It's like one of the main job descriptions for a real estate agent.
Right?
Right. That's exact. So you spent almost like 5 years
Yes.
with Clay County Schools. Did you just work at the same school the whole time?
No, I started off at Oakleaf Junior, went right out of elementary, and then was at Oakleaf High School for my last several years.
Right.
So I was truly in the front office, so I was kind of the face of the high school. When you walked in, you saw me.
And you probably, I imagine the high schools now, they generally have 2 or 3 people in there now. So, I mean, were you kind of managing a couple other people?
I was pretty much the only person at the front desk.
Mm-hmm.
I was there when they first opened, so I was really the only one. Then we started having the kids come up and help out at the front office. And
Mm-hmm.
so then I was kind of helping, keeping the kids doing some office things. Each period I had different kids that would come up and help.
Speak of the kids, I want to go back to something you said. Pretty much, you finished high school, and some people were going off to college. You chose to go to a business school, and if I heard you correctly, a business school for women, particularly. Is that?
Well, I mean, back then it
Yeah.
probably was mostly women.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't specifically had to be women, but it was
Right.
mostly women.
I mean, what is your feeling? You've been involved in the schools. Obviously, you've had your own kids, and where we're at in a society right now, not enough people are, to me, because to me that's a trade school. To me, that's just
Right.
It's not carpentry, it's an administrative job. But with technology today, well, of course, the kids today are learning how to use PowerPoint, all the Microsoft, all those things are now, and of course AI is out and everything now.
Right.
Hopefully they really need, to me, I think they really need to have an AI class now in high school, because it's not going anywhere. They might as well jump in front of it, knowing what we know from the last
Right.
20 years. Right. But your opinion on that, what it did for you to go to that school and prep you for what you did for almost, the next 20 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the choice that I made. So it was nice to have that prep. I mean, so in high school, and I think sometimes we've gotten away from that a little bit, but we had that option. I made that choice my 10th grade year, which direction I wanted to go. And obviously I could have changed it, but even in high school, I was getting prepped for what I wanted to do. So if someone chose trade, they were going to the trade school and they were
Right.
learning their welding, their wood crafting, their mechanics. The business, we were doing typing, accounting. Back then it was shorthand.
Yeah.
I'm going to age myself some shorthand. And then if you were going to college, you were doing really the higher end academic.
That is a unique skill. It's almost like sign language.
Yes. Exactly.
And most kids today, you'd say shorthand, they would not have no idea what you're talking about.
No.
Yeah.
I know, right? So we were already being prepped, and then your next option, you could either go to a business school, which we had a really reputable business school in Pittsburgh, or you could do like a 2-year associate's degree and
Yeah.
get a business degree that way.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is my personal opinion. I think there's some of the skills that we know, having been out in the world long enough, and we know these things. Is I just feel that the schools are pushing some of these academics, which is great. They never can stop learning. I think we both
Right.
agree on that. But there's a ton of stuff that they can get off on their own, but there's some of those practical things that, you made you better at what you were doing, that you learned early.
Right.
And were able to perfect and be a better producer out in the world, and probably got promoted because of it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I do wish that we would kind of go back a little bit to having that a little differentiation. I don't think everybody has to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of trade schools. There's a lot of great jobs out there. These kids are making a lot of money when getting into trade school. So, but I think if you have that option to do it in high school and then go to the trade school, it really does prep you a lot better for
getting right out there. I've been lately dabbling a lot into the AI. A couple of years ago when Marky Lemons was coming for the RE Bar Camp. Are you going to RE Bar Camp?
I am.
Okay, great.
I am.
All right, we'll see you there. She was the one who introduced me to ChatGPT, which had only come out just a few months early. It was January 2 years ago, 22. And so I dabbled in it. So I knew it was there. And then recently one of my guests said, you should, your Instagram captions, you should be, use the AI to it. So
Right.
I go in there and tell it what I want, and I can, just like we're talking here, I could just be as non-English way. It figures out what I want, but it also, when I upload the transcript from the show, it's reading the transcript. So when I say, hey, when Cindy was talking about this, it's already picking it up in the transcript and then spits out a better caption. But I've rewrote a course recently for Florida Realtors using AI.
I've done the same
I
thing.
uploaded the current course. We said, hey, we need to make these changes, and it formats it and everything and makes it look professional. And it just, speeds up the entire process.
Right.
So I really think these kids need, but anyway, I'm off on my little tangent there.
Yeah. No, and I think it works in your business too, because I know I had a customer that was they were getting into a foreclosure situation, and I was trying to talk to their attorney, and they came back at me with something, and I threw it into ChatGPT, and I said, okay, here's kind of what I need to come back to them with, and it spit it out so beautifully. And I was talking to another attorney that was a title attorney, and she's like, is that like something you already had? I'm like, ChatGPT.
Yeah. It is worth to pay the $20 so you can upload the documents and tell them, hey, analyze this document, and then.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I don't like about it is because, like I said, I'm trying to write this book. So I have all these transcripts of, 100, 200 transcripts, and it'll only really keep your stuff for so long. You can't go back 2 weeks later and say, hey, after I uploaded the transcript for the show, hey, do you remember Cindy's transcript from 2 weeks ago? Oh, no, re-upload that for me. Because I don't think, it's got to start just dumping, because it's bringing in so much information. Right. Yeah. So but it's fresh. Like you said, if you uploaded that attorney's letter and said, I want to respond to this, how would I? It would.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It was
double check it, but it does.
I made sure I read through and all that, but
it does 90% of what you needed.
Tweaks and stuff, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It formats it well, uses better, more, because you could tell it, I want to be a Harvard law, whatever. Right. Or I want to be Alan Dershowitz. I was listening to him speak this morning.
Too, in our business, we use it, to do our descriptions of our, our properties that we're listing. But you also have to be careful, because it can get very adjective friendly, and it's like, okay, that's a little too much.
I was telling it the other day. I was playing with it because one of the GPTs is creating logos, and I got mad at it. I was telling it, this is terrible. But if you're someone who's in the agents that are out there, you're talking back and forth with your clients a lot. We do a lot of it through text and emails.
Yes.
And if you're not an English major, to take what you wrote, put it in the ChatGPT, and tell it, hey, I want to write this in a professional format, and this is what I want it to accomplish. I want it to influence them or encourage them or whatever, and it'll rewrite it and make you look like you're brilliant.
Right.
Yeah.
You can put something in there and just say, because you should always end with a call to action. Put something in there and say, hey, take this and write me a nice call to action. Finishing line. And
exactly. So
yes,
if you're not leveraging even the basics, but it's definitely going to become, not only obviously in our real estate world, but in all aspects, it needs to be. All right. So what high school you finish up at?
I was at Oak Leaf.
Oak Leaf High School. You're at Oak Leaf High School. What triggers you to consider real estate? What happens in your life that this transition goes on from administrative assistant, high school secretary?
So one of the reasons I did go to working at the schools is because when we moved here, my kids were still in school, and I still wanted to be able to have the summers off with them because I just felt like they were teenagers. They just needed guidance, and I thought that
And the
was a
summers
good
go by like that.
right.
You know, going to a camp, going to go to do this, or
So I just felt that that was a good way to be there with them, plus have the summers off. Well, my son, my youngest, was going to be graduating high school. And I just thought, you know what, I really want something full time. Don't know if I want to work at the high school full time. I'm kind of ready for a career change. I had a friend that was doing real estate, and I said, well, that kind of seems nice. It's still flexible, but yet it's a professional job. I think I have the skill set to do this. So I went into real estate.
All right, so I'm gonna use your words right back at you on that one. So when you first walked in the door, your first day, month, week, whatever, did you have the skill set?
Well, the classes don't really teach you all the skill set. I mean, they teach you about laws.
Well, let me reverse that question. Let me reverse that question back a little bit. Now that you've been in it 11 years,
Did I have this? No.
you had some of them.
I had some of them.
You had some of them. Okay.
Yes, I had some of them. You know, I knew that I could do it, but it was just figuring out how to do it. So you walk out and you go, well, now what? Now I got to figure out, how do I get my customers? How do I, work the deal? Once I get a customer, I mean, I remember my first broker that I worked for. It was an interesting way of saying it, but it was true. I had my first deal. I finally closed it, and I went into him. I was very excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I closed my first deal. And he goes, well, that's awesome, but you're unemployed again. Now what? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
okay. I guess if you put it that way.
It is something that people have never, if they don't, I've worked commission based for a long time. So it's like, okay, you had a great month last month. Now,
Right.
okay, now you got to do it all over again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you spend a lot of time when you first get into it figuring out, where do I get these people from? And you start paying for leads, you spin your wheels a lot, and you start investing sometimes, I think, money that you don't necessarily have because you haven't made the sales yet, just to try and get the leads. And so I did a lot of that, got leads, but didn't really know how to work them once I got them. And then I switched brokerage firms, and I really just learned how to work my referrals and work my database and the people that I knew and the customers that I had and get referrals from them.
All right, let's dig in a little bit. The first brokerage you go to, and if you don't want to use names, you don't have to. It's totally up to you. I don't mention. I know what it was. Yeah, because now I remember. I have your LinkedIn in my mind. What was your choice there? Why did you end up signing under them initially?
Initially, I signed under them because they were literally 5 minutes from my house. They were well known in Northeast Florida, not really a national company. And I just went in, I met, I thought, okay, I think I could.
Did you talk to anyone else?
The other agent who I knew, she worked there. She had her license there. Okay. So I thought, well, let me give it a try. But I only lasted there about a year and a half, and then I switched.
Because this is a topic I bring up on every show, because I think, to me, in my opinion, I believe that many careers are made or lost in real estate right at that first step.
Right.
Now, some will survive no matter what because they've got grit. We'll talk about that in a little bit, because they'll figure it out themselves. Where some who need a little bit more structure, guidance, coaching, training, whatever the thing is that they need, they obviously don't get it at that first step, and they go those whatever amount of months without getting a deal, and they're like, hey, I can't do this anymore. I got to go back to, a W-2 job.
Right.
There. Was there some good things? I imagine you were there a year and a half. You survived a year and a half there. That first year, I mean, were you able to evolve some business? Or?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely did. I definitely evolved business. There, there were some great agents that worked at the office.
Yeah.
So
many of the great agents have started there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of tips from them, a lot of help and assistance from them. So yeah, so no, there was definitely, and I was determined. I knew I could do it, and I knew, I was enjoying it when I was working with the customers, and I was enjoying what I was doing. So I just needed to find a better place that was going to kind of help me be a better agent. And that's when I landed at Coldwell Banker, and then they had things in place that helped me.
Right. Now, this is why I need to write this book, because there's a similar, all the agents come from a different background, wherever, young, old, whatever, whenever they started, they came from somewhere different, but they get on the similar path. And I'm going to guess, I may be totally wrong here, but after being there a year and a half, were you starting to feel like, whatever business you were doing at that moment was kind of like maxing you out, and you weren't personally growing as a real estate agent or growing in your business? You already felt you kind of hit a lid at that point.
Yes, I didn't think that they were going to be able to provide me with anything additional to get me additional business, to give me additional knowledge, to really help me grow my business,
yeah,
grow me as a real estate agent, grow my business. So I just needed to find someone who could help me do that.
Yeah. Oh no, I've seen here in the last, no, it happens all the time. I'm going to say the last 6 months. When agents move, I pick up on that, because obviously I talk to a lot of you.
Right.
I've gotten to know a lot of you and your backgrounds and so forth. And when I see agents, all of a sudden they're popping up and say, hey, I'm now over here now. Well, I add, hey, why was it? Because there are some really great brokerages out there and great brokers, but I also feel in the human cycle of, the challenge of the broker, the leader, who may not, and it may not necessarily be them who's pouring down the knowledge, but they create the culture. It's
right.
Their job to be kind of like managing the culture. And if they're not continuing to add value, they're not looking at you going, hey, all right, she's been here now 18 months, her production's here, she's probably maxed out. What can we do for Cindy to grow her on? If they're not actually looking at every one of their agents like that, because as a broker, like any business, the fruit that the return on investment that they put into you is keeping you for a long period of time.
Exactly.
So the challenge to them is, the greatest challenge is how do I continue to add value as you grow? It's one thing, the infant needs this, the middle schooler needs this, the high schooler needs that, right? You have to start changing what you're giving them. And I think that's the greatest challenge. And that's the challenge of success, great success to me in real estate from a broker standpoint, is being able to continue to add that value. And that's obviously why you jumped, which I think is the reason why many agents move brokerages.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't, left Coldwell Banker, and I don't plan on it in any time in the near future, just because they do continue.
Well, you got a great broker, Kim Knapp, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Kim is, out there. She's deeply involved in the real estate industry.
Yes.
Locally as well as nationally. She puts herself out there. And then I can just imagine what she pours back into you guys.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just listening to a Zoom meeting on my way here this morning that she was putting on. So
yeah,
you can't, I don't know where else I can go that can give me that. And it just keeps you motivated. It keeps you with new ideas. It keeps you understanding what the market's looking like today, and how you can go about and convey that to, your buyers and your sellers, and have it make sense to them.
Right. Because there's so much information out there. Our Jared James, who's going to be speaking at RE Bar Camp.
Yes.
I mean, he pours out a bunch of stuff all the time. You need someone feeding you that information. You don't have time to research all that stuff. And that's where I think that, one of the things the broker needs to be doing is they need to be feeding you, here's what's going on in the market, so you can have intelligent conversations with your clients.
Right. And with all the changes that we've had with all of the that rulings that's come down, and
the buyer broker agreement.
Yes, all the new forms that we've had to do. Northeast Florida, we never used the as-is FAR. Now we are, and there's a lot of changes. And I will have to say that I work with other agents that sometimes they're at smaller brokerages, and I don't think they've been updated. So
yeah,
you turn into not only you almost work kind of both sides of it, because you're trying to say to them, well, we need these documents and we need these documents, and just to keep in contract. And
there are some great call anything that's not a Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, Century 21, or those the larger national names, a boutique of brokerage, just to kind of lump them all in there. you were at the whim of that broker's and maybe their leadership circle, if they have one, their aptitude for it. So if they're anti-buyer broker agreement and they're like, oh, I don't like this change. Well, you're probably not going to get a lot of good information of something that is going to change.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of people say, what do you, just general public that comes, what do you think about this new buyer broker agreement? I'm like, it's fine. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're all going to be fine. I mean, it just defines it a little differently. And you know what? Now we get to set a little value to what we're doing for the buyer. Before, I mean, I think they kind of knew, but now we really can spell it out and they really understand it because they have to, because they know that there's a price point put to that. And yes, we're going to do what we can to not have them have to pay, especially if they're unable to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to, make sure that now they understand a little bit more about what we're doing to help them.
I've had many agents tell me they're making more money per transaction now with the buyer broker agreement and the whole, the thing you got to do with the listing,
Yes.
on both sides now.
Yeah.
Because they're being very straightforward with them.
Right.
And I think, the standard thing I think is in sales is we immediately will go to the lowest denominator. We'll say, I think one of the failures of mortgage companies is if they let the loan officer go in and dictate what interest rate they'll go to and adjust their pay, say, well, if you can do that with some of these brokerages, these guys are kind of out there on their own where they can say, well, they're paying me so much for this deal, so I can give this all to the seller and I can give them the lowest interest rate.
Right.
Well, how do you know the lowest interest rate is? That's what they're going to tell you what they want. They want the lowest purchase price, right? Everybody wants the lowest purchase price. But when you're not going to last very long doing that. If I keep giving away the lowest interest rate, which means, like any item, if this mug costs me $10 and I sell it for $11, I can't keep the lights on. I got to sell it for 15 or 20, right? Or whatever it is. And that's the same thing with interest rates and so forth, that you keep going that lowest denominator, where I think this buyer broker agreement has made people sit down and say, okay, if I'm going to be halfway decent at this, I need to explain what I'm going to do.
Right.
What's my value proposition to the seller and to the buyer?
Exactly. No, I 100% agree. I think it's just made us now sit down and, I mean, we were, I was already sitting down with the buyers prior to going out and showing them property and then explaining the process and what I offer. But now it just takes a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Just so that there's some other pieces, like you didn't necessarily go into, well, after you go under contract, here's what I'm going to do for you. And it's not just about helping you find a property. It's helping protect you through the whole process of buying a property. Without an agent, you could very well easily get sucked into something and lose a binder because you didn't know the process and when your timelines and your time frames. Are you
still running into agents who don't, because obviously you guys all went to the Florida contract versus, the former NEFAR or whatever, right? That aren't filling it out correctly.
Some.
Yeah. Because wherever I can't say that's their broker's fault, because we know actually the statistics been out this week, 75% of the real estate agents out there did $2 million or less. So that could be less than a half a dozen deals in this area. Correct. A year. So if they did those in the spring and they're writing their first deal or two post August 17th, right? Right. Drop the dead day of the buyer. That with this, did the new paperwork come out? It was August. When was the Florida?
August 17th was when we had to do the buyer broker before showing a property.
And then the contract went to Florida's contract.
That was around the same time.
Same time, yeah. August 1st or something like that. Yeah, the dates are. So if they are not experiencing it, because I've heard agents they're not filling it out correctly, But my question I wanted to ask you, because I think different agents have a different angle on this, different idea on how to, or when you're doing a listing, are you putting out there are you advertising, or when a buyer's agent calls you and says, hey, what are you offering for compensation to the buyer's side? Are you putting it out there? Or are you waiting for them to make the offer to you?
Right now, and it really is going to depend on the seller, what they want to do. So far, I've had most sellers give me a number and say, this is what I'm willing to offer. And so we are putting that out there. And Coldwell Banker has an actual website that people can go to. And
so you're putting out there 2, 3, you're putting that number right out there out front. You're just not even, it's not even.
Correct.
Okay.
So, however, there are some sellers that say it's going to be negotiable based on the price. well, then I'm going to put that, that
Based on their
website.
offer, what they're willing to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I will put that out there. It's negotiable, so write it into your offer. I just had an agent call me about one of my listings, and she's like, what are they offering? And when I told her, she was like, well, that's not very much. And I said, well, that's not what necessarily all that you're going to get. Write the offer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Put the offer together. You just don't know.
If you want to offer $20,000 below asking, that's probably what you're going to get.
But,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is interesting because before we negotiated the price points and any seller concessions to the buyer, with the seller already knowing that they were giving X to the buyer's agent. And now we're utilizing that as another negotiation.
Yeah. And it's coming out on the agent's side in most cases. If you don't ask, you won't get.
Right.
That's basically it. You put negotiation as one of your skills, which is definitely should be a skill that every real estate agent should be borrowed. What do you think is unique about what's your mindset in approaching a negotiation there that you think you've kind of gotten pretty good at, and is why you're good at negotiating?
Well, I obviously you can't take it personal. It's not.
It's not your money.
It's not my money.
Yeah.
Not my house. Not the house I would love. I fell in love with. I want to buy. So I have to take that middle of the road and just say, I'm working here for the transaction. I'm making sure that both sides are getting a little bit of a win, so that they feel good about. Each of them feels good.
They got the deal.
Yes, they got it. Yes. Some people don't care. Some people want the deal, and there's and you got to make sure they each feel good about the outcome. And that makes for a smoother transaction as you move forward. But yes, I think when I first got in the business, sometimes you would get that call, you did the inspections and they call you and say, well, this and this and this. And you get, what? And you get so worked. And then you have to go, no, it's not my house. It's not personal. It's the facts about the house. And we need to work on it, and I'll just present it to the seller like, okay, here's the report. Here's what they've asked for, and then sometimes it's also, are you willing to lose this? Like I always will then go, if it's a lot, I go and trying to find out what that was it going to cost you to make these repairs. And then it's like, okay, it's $500. Do you really want to lose this sale over $500?
Yeah.
Maybe we can try and split the difference. Let's get something, but let's think about it realistically.
I think the thing you learn in sales over time, and what's interesting is, I've pretty much been in sales my entire life, so it's nothing new. But for you, coming from that more of the structured corporate world into you learn that about the people. We talked about it earlier. When they come in and sometimes they're venting on you, they had a wife argue with their spouse, or, something, traffic was bad, right? They're tired, they're hungry, whatever it is. And they're taking it out on you kind of brush it off. You kind of taking that same approach into real estate, because I do think some agents, when I hear the hostile interactions with other agents, this because one agent's taking it like too personal. And I think part of that comes from the stress of not realizing how you approach the buyer or seller or whoever you're representing, and you go back to them and say, here's the situation. It's how you present that to them, like finding out what it really cost, right? They see that report and go, oh my God. Oh, it's only $500. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's. I'm in love with the house.
Right.
There's only one address.
Right.
That house is at that address and that location near that school or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you just take a step back, right? Just as you did as that high school secretary, I'm sure you had those situations. Take that step back and then realize how you respond is so important.
Exactly. No, I 100% agree. I had a seller that they'd only been in the house not even a year, and they had to move, and they were going to take a little loss on it. And so I knew with the contract they were already taking a loss, and the inspections came back, and there was not a lot on the inspections, but some stuff on the inspections. And then they sent over the repair request, which was really minor. But I already knew the seller was upset about taking the loss. They were anxious about the report. And so I said, okay, I sent the report. And I go, here's the report. And I said, I'll be getting the repair request shortly. But I already had it. And I already knew how good it was.
Right.
And she got the report. She calls me and she's like, oh my gosh. Oh, and I said, you know what? Before we go anywhere, I just got the repair request in. Let me get that over to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything she was all worked up about, I'm like, look, they're only asking for like, 3 things.
Right.
And she's like, oh, okay. Cause she was already, I'm not doing anything. I'm not taking care of anything. And now it's like, okay, well, I think I could probably take care of those few things.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all how you approach it. I think it's so important. I'm probably one of the worst out there. People have known me long enough. I can kind of come off too direct, or sometimes some of us wear our emotions on our sleeves, but you learn to take a deep breath. Maybe you get off that, read that email, don't respond right away, go get something to drink or whatever,
Exactly.
go get lunch, come back, and then respond with a clear mind. Can make things, because again, there's emotions involved,
Yes.
buyers, sellers, and then hopefully agents aren't bringing in their egos, but a lot of times they do.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the whole process is emotional. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big decision. Is the seller making enough money to move on to what they need to do? Is the buyer, truly able to afford this and move in? And so there's just a lot of emotions going on. You have some people that are they just move forward like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm moving in. And then I have some buyers and sellers that are
The littlest thing
yeah,
there.
it just sets them off. I mean,
Yeah.
I said we were in the car the one day. I had a buyer call me, and she was just at the end of her wits. She goes, "I don't think I can do this. I don't." And I'm like, "It's okay. Let's think about what is it we're talking about. Like, what is it that's upsetting you now? Where are you with it? Okay." And then we just kind of talked it through.
Yeah.
We got to the end of it, and by the end of the conversation, she's like, "Okay, yeah, no, we're good. I can
Yeah.
do this." I'm like, "Okay."
The obvious thing, because you and I know this out there, but I think a lot of the world, the NAR settlement, the whole thing going on, the clickbait on social media to really, I thought down the collateral damage was downgrading real estate agents. Right.
Right.
And there's bad apples in everything you do. I don't care whether it's a bad car salesman, real estate, whatever, you name the industry, somebody's trying to do something scrupulous. Right.
Correct.
But the majority of us are there trying to do the right thing. But the one thing I think is underestimated is the counseling, the human counseling, the psychologist work that especially real estate agents do. Like
Right.
you have a client and you realize that, let me hold on to the knowledge I have right now. Let me show her this, because I know how she's going to react, but I know then when I counterpunch with this good news, she'll be like, oh, great. You knew that through the process versus just dumping, hey, here it is, and here's what they'll do. You
Right.
strategically made it softer and smoother, and
Yes.
because you read them and you're understanding. And I think that's totally underestimated in the great real estate agents.
No, I agree. I think, they just think we push paper around and pull up a house and say, hey, go, when you want to see this house. And
Yeah.
it's like, but no, there's a lot that goes into understanding their needs and how they respond and how they react, and making sure that we're keeping them calm through this, because it is emotional
Yeah.
and stressful.
And I think every deal for this last year, to me, seems to have extra hair to it, right? There's some extra turns in the road, and even coming from the seller side, what they have more demands than and matching those, and it takes the reading of the people. I'm going to change pace. I prepped you pre-show for this. I think kind of what we're talking about is part of the grit of being a real estate agent, and meaning some of these things are thrown at you, whether they're people or the physical things. There's something wrong with the house. There's title work issues. There's a loan issue, whatever. You're throwing all these things all the time at you. Someone calls up. My wife took a phone call a week and a half ago, and she said to the lady, so when are you looking to list it? She's like, today. She's like, okay, well, we'll get it on this week. We got to get some pictures done and stuff like that.
There's a few
Right?
things we have to do in advance.
Yeah. So you're throwing these things all the time. And again, one of the collateral damage is the downgrading real estate agents. But when the point I want to get across, and the questions I'm going to ask you in this next series, is the true grit of a real estate agent. Because coming from being an administrative assistant, you've got an HR department that says the principal can't say certain things to you or whatever. There's no HR. Right? People could say whatever they want to you.
Right.
It's you're out there. You have to deal with the customers you have. Now, you don't have to actually accommodate that customer. You could say, we're not going to work out. You probably should choose another real estate agent. You certainly can do that. But to make a living, you have to deal with the edges, of people who may be a little off. So what I say, and then obviously all those problems that I just listed there that could come up in a transaction. There's many of them, and we never see all of them. We could probably survey everyone in your office. Give me a list of problems that you've had on deals in the last year, and we'd only cover maybe 10% of the overall deals nationally that have all come up, right? But I believe the grit of a real estate agent in my talk that I'm creating is they have to have their LLC. And that's love, laughter, and consistency. So tell us why you've fallen in love with real estate. Because I imagine that first year at your first brokerage, you were learning what real estate was all about. Now you've kind of got a full grasp on, I wouldn't say a full grasp on it, you got a good grasp on it.
Right.
Why do you love what you do?
It's really, I know people always say I love helping people, but I really do love seeing their dreams come true. And when you're at the end of the deal and someone says, oh my gosh, I got my dream house, or, my kids are going to be so happy in this school district because I finally was able to get them over here. And you were so helpful in this. And you were, I love it. Like, I just love that part of it. I just love being able to be there for somebody in this decision that's so big for them, and know that I've got them from the point A to point B as smoothly as we could, and to see them so happy at the end.
Yeah. I think we underestimate the challenge. We're all human. We have if we went back and looked at our challenges in life, we have a lot of overlap. We've, whether it was financial, whatever it was, setback, fired from a job, laid off, whatever, all these things that happen in life. But when you don't know how important, maybe they might have had great challenges and they wanted to get into that school district, or, be in that school zone for that particular school, and just things weren't working out financially. They couldn't find the right house that they could afford, or whatever it is. And you're the one that got them there. And we don't know how long they may have been thinking or battling that issue, right, whatever it may be.
Well, and that's the thing too, it's like, you don't know their financial situation. They're trying to, buy their first house, and they're trying to save up the money. And I love being able to kind of know what options I have for them. Hey, what this lender is offering this, let's see what we can do there. Okay, well, that didn't work out. Unfortunately made a little too much for that one, but hey, you know what? I know this lender is going to, and then you eventually get them where they need to go, and you get them with that right person, and it all comes together.
Yeah. And
you find them that house that the seller was willing to give a little extra to, and you get them where they need to be.
Yeah. Making the deal happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the laughter part is a little more challenging. I tell you had to think about this one a little bit. That time you kind of got punched in the gut, and maybe you thought, I think every real estate agent at some point in time questions themselves why they're in real estate. Something happens, or those things happen in threes, right? You get punched 3 times in a row. It's like, okay, is he telling me to get out of the business? Right? Something that today you laugh about. You think about this, this setback that you might have had, and laugh about it. And when some of these setbacks come to you today, you're like, no problem. I've dealt with this in the past. What are some of those things you laugh about that kind of hit you? Set you back in the past?
Yeah, in the past, when I first started in the business, it's like probably more with buyers, just because you were taking them around and showing them property, and next thing you know, they're like, oh yeah, we found the property we love. And you're like, what? You did what? And it's not with me. And you're like, okay. And so you just have to kind of dust yourself off, get back up and say, all right, well, now I know, and try and work it out differently the next time. And I think these buyer broker agreements are definitely helping a lot with that.
Right.
But, so those are some set.
Whether it's a friend or relative who says, yeah, we just bought a house, and like,
Right.
I've been in real estate for 11 years, right? I mean,
Right.
That probably still happens occasionally.
It does. It does. You have that person that ends up going to new build, and they
walks right by you.
They didn't even think about, like, oh, I could use you.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you let all that get to you, you definitely could get out of the business. I mean, you have to just, okay, that's fine. That worked for them. I'm happy for them. You have to be happy for the outcome that they chose, and move on.
Right.
There's enough business out there. There's enough people out there. So
that's the thing. I think we kind of under measure there is a lot of business out there. Like I said, 75% of the agents did less than, $2 million. When you look at the billions of dollars in real estate's been transacted in Northeast Florida, there's deals out there
Yes.
every day that can be had. And you're not really, to me, I have that faith where I'm like, okay, that person chose to go with someone else for a reason. Now, being in the financial side, because they know I'm going to pull their credit report or whatever. And sometimes people don't want you to know because they are that close to you. They don't want you to know that part of them.
Right.
And that could be your relatives or close friends. But then there's other relatives and close friends, like they won't do a deal with anybody else.
Exactly.
They don't care how experienced you are or whatever their financial situations. They'll tell you the whole thing.
Right.
I like dealing with those people, those friends, because obviously they know in the heart of it, I'm gonna go above and beyond to if it's in my own deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's in too when you are working your sphere, your database too. You do put those into categories because there are those people that enjoyed working with you, but they're just not that person that runs around and refers you all the time and says everything.
Right.
But then you have those ones that they love doing that. That's part of their personality. If someone says, "Hey, I'm trying to buy a house or I'm trying to sell my house," they're like,
"Oh, you got to use Cindy.
You got to use Cindy.
Yeah,
she's the person." And so for all those that don't, there's the ones that will, and I just am always happy for however you ended up getting to your next step in life and your next adventure. Good. I'm glad you got there.
Yeah. Consistency. What is something, like I said, maybe it's something you've been always doing. Maybe it's something, the first brokerage taught you, or maybe it's something that's just totally evolved that you now are at least doing, January 2025, that you're doing consistently, some sort of regimen, something you're doing consistently, whether it's daily or monthly in your business, you think is, part of your foundation.
It really is working my database. And that's what I learned when I came to Coldwell is just working my database, learning how to ask for their referrals, keeping in touch and in flow with them, because I do sometimes believe that the last person that they could know 10 agents and they're thinking about selling, and I sent them an email or a flyer or something the day that they decided for sure they were doing it, that could be the reason they went with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think it's keeping in touch with them. And so what I've been doing, what I do is I do have a database put together. I send out, and Coldwell Banker helps us do this, but I send out monthly emails, kind of items of value, some fun items like what's happening around the community. I do emails. I do paper. I actually send in the mail, snail mail, some paper, some, again, items of value in the mail every month, plus just personal note cards, phone calls, real estate reviews.
Do you have a routine like you want to, someone maybe you sold a house to last year, like in the next 365 days, how many times you want to touch them? How many these things?
I don't necessarily have for that person. I mean, I do have a program where I do send them congratulations, and then I send them so many pieces of mail throughout that first year, like, hey, it's 30 days. Make sure you file for homestead exemption. So I am doing those touches. And then I do send personal notes out to them in that first year, and every year that it's the anniversary, I do send out, happy home, house anniversary cards just to remind them, hey, this is, been 3 years since you purchased,
Right.
Can't believe it. I'm here if you need me.
Are you leveraging your CRM, or is this something you're doing almost manually?
I guess I'm just manually doing it. Plus, I do go through my CRM and I have groups of people that I touch on different times.
Yeah.
So, and that was definitely something that when I learned that, it was just such an eye opener.
You just started to see your business start to ramp up.
Because, like I said, when I first got in the business, I was trying to find and then I'm paying for stuff. And I'll tell you, it was so enlightening that first time that someone calls you and says, hey, I've got an opening spot, for this zip code. Do you want to buy it? And before I'd be like, tell me about that. What can I do? And now I'm like, I appreciate the phone call. However, my business is based off of referral. I don't pay for leads, but I really appreciate you calling.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to actually say, because I think I asked a question about consistency here a moment ago, is that all the different things you're doing, whether it's the note cards, birthday cards, whatever the mailing a newsletter out or
Right.
those type of things. I mean, in 11 years, we have that instant gratification. All of us kind of have it now. I won't say there's a generation. We all want, because
Right.
a lot of things are at our fingertips, but not every day is you're not convincing someone to come buy milk from your farm, right? Which they might be doing once or twice, 3 times a week, depending if they got kids or buying milk, right? You're selling a house, or you're wanting to represent them in buying and selling a house, but that only comes around sometimes, in 11 years. I'm sure there's half your clients, it's happened the one time you've interacted with them. They haven't done anything since with their home and have no intentions of buying or selling another house anytime in the near future. There's others that, when the interest rates were low, we were seeing a lot of internal, moving from neighborhood to neighborhood because the rates were so low. Like, well, hey, we just go over here, the payment's roughly the same, and type of thing. And we don't have that business anymore. But every agent has that customer they've already worked 2 or 3 times,
Right.
or if not them buying and selling, they've referred you
Correct.
2 or 3 times. The importance of the consistency, if you can express, if an agent's listening right now, maybe in their first year, the importance of what you learned of, establishing that routine of making those contacts with their database, which may not bear fruit for years. You may send someone a postcard. I haven't told this story in a long time, and it's kind of a hint to Ari Barkamp, and I'm not going to tell the secret. Ryan Serhant, in his first book, talks about sending a postcard to this guy who he had early on in his career, just touching base. Hey, I'm your realtor in New York. I'm your realtor in New York. And I think it goes on for years. The guy out of the blue one day just calls him and said, hey, I want to buy this property over here. Go make an offer on it. It was like a $17 million property. He calculated, I want to say like 200 some odd dollars or whatever a day, that it was what his commission was. From the day he met him to the day he bought, that commission back paid him $200 or whatever it was a day.
Wow.
But he kept consistently touching.
Yes.
If you can express maybe a success story maybe you've had, but how consistent it was that you learned early, touch them often, and be consistent about it.
No, I 100% agree. It's not always instant gratification. It is, 3 years from now, you get that call and they're like, I'm ready to move, or I need to buy, or even if it's like, I need a second home. And, I've had people that have come back to me, and I just had one that I sold him a townhouse. I mean, it has to be like 10 years ago. I think it was when I was with the first brokerage. But he was always on my email list, and he was military. So he was always all over the place, and he would refer military people to me. And
because he's getting your mail.
Yes.
Your contacts, and he's handing it off to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, okay. And then I had never seen him, until recently. He just finally moved back here to Jacksonville, and I helped him get a property again here in Jacksonville. But it was because I kept in touch with him.
Right. Because we're always out there, like I said, want to buy leads and so forth. But man, whether you're in the mortgage business, you're in real, those lead buy and working those clients are tough.
They are tough.
It will burn you out. Trust me. I worked in a call center for 12 years, working those kind of leads all day long, consistently pulling 5-6 credit reports a day.
Yeah.
It will burn you out in a short period of time, especially if you're, there's one thing when I was sitting in a cube in front of a computer screen and doing that, and that's what you're doing.
Right.
But when you're out and about and doing your other things, marketing, handling your referral clients, and then you're also trying to take these leads, because it's like, first, when you get that ping, you better call them right now.
Right.
Because someone else is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's a lot of work that you put into this lead that may turn into nothing, because there's a lot of them that accidentally click the button
Yeah.
to find an agent.
Or they're just being nosy or whatever.
Right, they just
They're
want a little bit more information.
Yeah.
And you're trying to, like, well, you know what? If you're really looking to buy a house, I can help you, and but then just trying to, and a lot of them haven't been pre-approved, and then they go try and get pre-approved, and then they really can't qualify right now. And so there's just a lot of hand holding that you do for those types of leads.
Yeah.
So it's nice sometimes not to.
Well, to get to that point.
Yes.
And I think what the strength in what we just said, to go back and if you're an agent listening right now, what Cindy's telling you is get started on that list, because if the cost of you it takes a little bit of organization, but I'm sure you've kind of probably got some sort of system down now. There's a cost to doing that, but when you look at the cost of trying to acquire a new person versus a person who already knows you and who knows other people, and I talk often about just getting into their Facebook, being friends with them on Facebook and interact. Then you start to interact with their circles that you don't even know. Right. It's a more valuable social network, really, when you think about it. And I think if you really look over the cost, probably in 10 years, if you had to do your business all off the leads, what you would have had to spend versus what you're spending now, just staying.
Oh, just the cost of being part of that lead generation program is ridiculous. I mean, it's gone up and up and up. And then just trying to put time, what do you calculate your time? So I'm putting my time into trying to get them to a point where they can buy. And sometimes that's, a year.
What do you think, looking at today's marketplace, obviously we're growing in listings and their time on market. What do you think, 2 or 3 things that you think agents should be doing right now versus, 2.5 years ago, we stuck a sign in the yard and it was gone, right? What do they need to be doing now and understand whether it's in their marketing or how they're handling clients and getting more perspective of what today's market is versus just a couple of years ago?
Well, I think it's understanding.
Really, just a year ago, really, if you think about it. Yeah.
I think it's just truly understanding what the market is, and then being able to convey that to their sellers and be upfront and honest with them. Start off with, here's where the market is. Here's where our price points are. Overpricing in today's market is not the way to go. And having some upfront conversations about, just because somebody comes to see your house, if we don't get any offers, that's not a good thing. I mean, it doesn't mean you're getting activity, but we're not getting any showing. So something's off.
Right.
And having a plan up front so that you work out with that seller so that they're more, if that does happen, if they choose to go at a higher price, or we go at a price that seems consistent, but the market just is falling off, now they understand you've already proposed that to them. You've already given them that information. So now they're more willing to kind of work with you on, okay, well, you already said that this could happen. I know we're getting showings, but we're not getting offers. So let's talk about next steps.
Do you think with the exception of, obviously there's a problem with the house or, I don't know, maybe
those are things you'd be having conversations up front too.
Yeah.
Condition and
getting those things squared away before you even put the house up for sale. These houses that are hanging out a little bit longer, I think in the go-to, anything under $400,000 is in good condition is probably not lasting very long because we still have a lot of first-time home buyers that are trying to get in. If they're not looking for their 25 years old, looking for their forever home that their parents own, they're actually more reasonable. They're thinking sub $400,000. If it's in halfway decent shape, it's gone. Right. But if you're in that price point north of 400 to 700 and you're priced $20,000 higher, because we have a lot of subdivisions around here, a lot of comparables.
Yes.
Is that really one of the primary reasons why some of the houses are sitting a little bit longer than others?
Yeah, they're trying to price them for what happened, 2021 and how they were getting well over and that we just went up so fast. Yeah. And they're like, but my neighbor down the street, it's like, well, unfortunately, our interest rates have gone up and they don't seem to be coming down. Our prices have stayed up. Something's going to give. And yes, when you overprice, and not everybody's wanting to come in and lowball you. It's like, I think they're still in that mindset that I have to overprice it because they're going to want to come in and negotiate. It's like, no, if you price it right
and hold,
it's going to work out for you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get the offer. They want your house, and then you negotiate your terms.
And I think there's 2 sides to that. If they've got a good buyer's representative, you've already had the discussion with them. This is the right price. This is where we're going to get offers at this price because the house down the street just sold for this, and that's not what they're going to look for. Right. And they're going to see that this is the right price. Let's get some offers, and they'll negotiate whether they're not paying the buyers or not paying as much as the buyers or go a little over, whatever that negotiation is. The bottom line is how much money they walk away with, right?
Exactly.
But if on the other side, a good buyer's agent Of course, we all have had that client who wants to lowball everyone. It's just no matter what you tell them, that's what they're going to do. So you take those out of the market. If you have a good buyer's agent who's educating, just like you educated your sellers, who's educating, said this house is actually properly priced, you're going to get that full price offer minus some repair negotiations.
Yes. So you have to be, and that's the thing when you go in with the buyers too, you have to know a little bit about their circumstances. And I always tell the buyers, I said, we don't submit an offer until I've had a conversation with your lender. I want to make sure that they understand this is the house you want. They understand the price that, the price point is right. So we're going to go in at this price point. What else do I need to go in with? We want to negotiate it properly. And I tell them, I say, if you need a lot of assistance with closing costs, we may have to go up a little bit.
Yeah.
To offset that, and because the house is priced right, so we gotta, so just educating both sides, and then for the seller, yes, if you price it right, you're going to get very close to that.
Yeah. I think that was probably one thing that we're pricing the home right. We'll add in there the buyer's agent. Educating. You need to be educating. Yes. You need to be, I guess the advice is, whether you're a buyer's agent or selling agent, you need to have the facts at your fingertips.
Yes.
Yeah. When it comes to very new agents, and those who are, I had a gentleman contact me. He was talking about getting into the mortgage business. I said, let me tell you about the mortgage business right now. Over 50%, almost 60% of the deals in Northeast Florida are cash right now. All right. So that's over half the transactions are gone right now. Then you have builders who have their either preferred, or most of them have their own lender, who are giving all these incentives. If you go there, they're capturing over 90% of those deals. Unless you got a squirrely customer that lender doesn't want to actually do their loan, they'll let somebody else outside do the loan for them because they just don't want to take that risk in the loan, right? So those are off the table. I actually told him, he said, really what you need to do is probably become a real estate agent. And because he was already in financial advising and had experience going out and getting his own business and so forth, I said, lenders, he had talked to a lender and said they were going to feed him leads. I said, dude, I've worked in a call center with the biggest lenders in the country, Quicken Loans and Loan Depot, at the time when we were doing huge refis, and it was nothing, at the peak times, 30, 40 deals a month we were writing because it was a volume based. Those call centers are gone. They don't exist anymore. They're out there trying to get real estate agent business, and because it's all purchase. So that's where you go, because it's just that marketplace. But so someone entering new right now, that's where I want to go back to the new agent, maybe looking at pre-license, maybe just thinking about getting in the industry. What are some of the things that you would recommend them do before they actually sign up for that first brokerage?
Well, I mean,
to find out if this is really what they want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would probably talk to other real estate agents. I mean, most people know if an agent, when they choose to get into the business, a lot of them already know somebody that's an agent. So sit down and have a real conversation about what does this mean? I mean, I've had conversations with a lot of people that have said, hey, I want to get into the business. And we sit down and have a conversation. What are your upfront costs? How do you go about this? Like, what does it look like to be an agent? And some of them choose to do it and some choose not to do it after this conversation. So I think you really just need to sit down with 1, 2, 3, 4 agents and just say, hey, how's it?
Sometimes your girlfriend can make it a little
yes
sensational than it is because they want you to do what they're doing.
Yes.
Thinking there's some sort of bonding going on there.
Right.
That could be a death trap.
Yes.
But yeah, reaching out to top agents that maybe they know, but
yes,
we'll have more of a straight up, this is how it is conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you still want to get into it, then yes, definitely, but just understand too that class doesn't really teach you everything about being a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. It's, gives you some information, a lot of rules and regulations and ethics, and then searching out the right brokerage firm, asking around, interviewing a few of, I think you need to look for somebody at brokerage that talks more about you and your business and what they can do for you and your business than what you can do for them.
Yeah.
So as long as they're, and ask them, what's your plan to help me get started? Because
really they are a business partner.
Yes.
That broker, and it's not necessarily always the broker. I mean, if you know some top agents, which, your office has quite a few successful agents over there, maybe, that's the person you're following. You're being, obviously if someone's willing to mentor you
Correct.
Or allow them to follow them around, I think is so valuable to learn what they actually are doing on a daily basis. But I mean, I think you're fortunate over there, we'll throw out Kim Knapp again. I mean, if someone said, hey, if there's a broker in town that would really give me the skinny of the business, I'd say probably go over and talk to Kim Knapp.
Exactly.
Yeah, she'll tell you how it is and what to expect in getting your business and how to get your business started. I mean,
Right.
and
And I think too, like you have to be willing to, go into the office, go talk to the agents, go, ask them, hey, can I sit with you on an open house? Can I go on a listing appointment with you or something? Just so you can kind of get a feel for what does that look like, and how does that, and just kind of be a shadow. I mean, and I really do believe going into the office too. I mean, and I think that just in general business with all the at-home work, these employees don't get what they need when they're just starting off. They're not getting what they need.
you don't
by
know
sitting
what you
at
don't
home.
know.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know. And if you're not in the office, you don't necessarily know.
Right.
It's not like you got to live in there.
No.
But to go in, I think, I'm sure Kim, when she has a meeting, she has a substantive meeting. She knows people are coming in who don't really want to really come in, but they're coming in because Kim's calling the meeting. So Kim needs to make sure she's putting that value. She's that type of person that would make sure that hopefully when you leave from that sales meeting, you're leaving with some sort of nugget.
Right.
So that's the type of broker you want to be around.
Exactly.
What are our sales meetings like? Are they bringing in guest speakers? Is there always something that we're being taught, to improve our skills?
Yes, and I would agree. And that's our sales meetings it's not just numbers, and it's just not, talking about our numbers and we did this. It's bringing somebody in
Nobody
a
cares
value.
about that.
I know. It's bringing somebody in a value to help us and to give us more information. So we're always doing that.
Well, I want to clarify the number part. You want to recognize who's doing well because you want the people who maybe not, who want to do better, who they should be looking up to.
Right.
So you want to recognize those people, but keep it short. And then knowing the numbers, though, from presentation purposes, when you're talking to a buyer seller, you need to know how many days on market, or at this price point, they're at this many days. At this price point, they're at this many days. What is it that the statistical data that we talked about to educate your buyer and seller, so it makes your life easier if you educate them up front?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I think anyone coming into the business, they definitely need to interview some brokers, make sure that ask them what their plan is to help them grow in their business, go into the offices, listen to the other brokers, the other agents that are in the office, like actually listen in a little bit and listen, I'm not saying,
Well,
to be creepy, but just go in and at least have listen to what they're talking about, listen to how they're interacting and ask questions.
Yeah.
Because you're right. You don't know what you don't know. And you might hear them say something and you say, what were you just, and then when they get off, oh, well, I heard you say this. What does that mean? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Just always learn.
Well, the things that you learn in there, for those who are listening, I'm sure Cindy has realized this in her business, like for instance, on where you're at, out there on the other side, you have great subdivisions, but you also have land with manufactured homes on them. Yes. They're different animals, different lenders. Some lenders will do that. Some lenders won't do it. Some lenders will only do so many years. If it's only so many years old, they'll do it. Some will only do it, if there's a reasonable amount of land. If it's, an exuberant amount of land, you got to find another lender to do that. You wouldn't know that if you were just working and talking to one lender or so forth. So you need to know that, hey, this lender, maybe your go-to lender, 90% of your business is there. They do manufactured homes, 20 whatever many years old, single wide, double wide, whatever, and cover it all. But you also need to know that there's some deals. It's not that they can't be done. It's just they don't want. There's some lenders don't do that.
Right.
And if you're not in the office, listening to the other agents going, oh yeah, I got a property done just like that last year. This guy did it. You wouldn't know that. And there's deals that are going to be made because you got water cooler talk is what I call it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I believe in that. I truly believe you have to.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think I really, people say, oh, the internet technology is it's never going to take over the real estate business, because the fortunate thing that keeps, we're problem solvers. That's what we do. And every property is unique. Every county's got its own laws, state,
Yes.
whatever it is. Whether you know that cookie cutter subdivision, very easy to do, no problem. A lot of comps, no problem. But it's a stone's throw for you. You're out into the farmland, agricultural land, different lenders, different lending types, all these different things going on, and you need to have a Rolodex of those people that'll do those deals. And how do you get that Rolodex? Is talking with the other agents in your office.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because somebody's done the deal one time or another.
Somebody has, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking to them, not being afraid to ask. You know, if you get somebody that says, "Hey, you know, I want to buy land. You know, I want 5 acres of land out in the country." You know, don't just start looking for 5 acres of land out in the country. Like, ask some other agents, like, hey, I have somebody that wants, you know, what should I be looking for? You know, this is my first time looking for it. What should I be asking? What should I be looking for? Because, heck, if you're trying to buy out in Clay County, out in a lot of it's wetlands.
Yes.
That you can't even build on.
you might have 20 acres, but only 3 or.
I remember I had one customer they wanted to buy. It was like an acre and a half, and only a quarter of it you could build on. Everything else was wetlands.
Yeah. 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 St. John's, someone told me that is, you know, as you know, in Clay, I'm sure it's the same way. Anytime they're building, they got to bring in fill.
Yes.
They got to bring in fill and build it up to build anything in these counties, because they are literally on wetlands. So yeah, that's another tidbit of advice. But that's the importance of the real estate agents. That's why anyone listening, it's why you are important as a real estate agent, because you know these things. But again, what Cindy's saying is you can't learn that when you're just sitting at home and only talking to people in structured conversations. It's that water cooler talk. It's that sales meeting where someone says, you know, tells you about, hey, I got this land out here and I got it done. I got it financed. So-and-so was able to get it done. Because, you know, I have to tell a story now. It's a short story, but it's a success story. Bank statement loan. It had a lot of hair to it. It had a lot of squirrely things to it. You know, what was going on. And I think we probably got three or four different exceptions on it to get it done. Those are unique loans. They are basically investors. They're equity investors, meaning how much money are you putting down? What's your credit? So, because that's going to tell them their likelihood that you're going to make payments. And then they take your bank statements to show that and they come up with a number. I mean, it's crazy what they come up with. But there are lenders willing to do that. But if you just looked at their straight guidelines, and I had this customer, I would say, no, you don't meet those guidelines. And we never would have kicked off the ball. Yeah. But because we kicked off, asked for exceptions, and just kept going, and we literally actually got it done. I'm proudly in literally 2 weeks got it done. We had already got the customer approved from the bank statements. We already had the bank statements to get an income, but with the exceptions, you don't know what's going on in these other, because it's not us as town banker. We're underwriting. We're doing what they tell us to do based on their guide, but we still got to send the package off to them for them to go, yeah, okay, you know, check off all the things that we did, all the stuff. But when you ask for an exception, I mean, this is around Thanksgiving. Who's on vacation? Who's there? Exactly. These other things that go involved. So you got to have a savvy agent who knows savvy loan officers that will get those squirrely ones done.
I just did one where she was selling her property, buying another property. The property had a guest house, and the guest house did have a separate address. I mean, it was the same street. It just was A and B. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I want to sell some of my land in a different state, and I want to do 1031 exchange on the guest house for the guest house, but it's all one property. It's all one parcel.
Yes, one description.
So we got.
And she's buying it as her primary.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Gotcha.
So she gets us with a 1030. She had called a 1031 exchange company, and the woman who calls us, and we did a 3-way with the lender and her and myself, and we're like, still the lender and I are like, I'm not seeing how this is going to work out. It's like, you want me to give value to a guest house on a property, and you want me to do an addendum to say I give value to this and what that value is, and
strictly just for that second unit.
Yes.
For that second unit.
Yes. So anyhow, then I ended up calling my title company. I said, can you give me the name of who's your best 1031 exchange company? So gave me the name. I called them, and the woman was very helpful. She explained it in a little bit more layman's terms, like, you know, we got the lender on board and figured it all out, and we got it done.
You got it done. That is such a unique situation. You're probably the only one in Northeast Florida, if not Florida, that had that situation this year. I mean, and it takes you and I here on the street level, because we only deal with it one time. You've got to have those resources, those people who you can call, who are going to go in there and reasonably look at it, that have been doing it long enough and say, well, I got this other one done. Let's see, this is just a little bit different. Right. And that's guaranteed what went through this. Well, we got something similar like that done. Let's see, under the guidelines, or in this case, I think they're more, it's actually not the lender, the loan itself actually is not the challenge, because we could care less. I mean, we want to know where the money came from. But if they want to spend a 1031 exchange money on a primary residence, that's their problem with the IRS.
Exactly. And that's what the lender had to say. As long as it's covered by the IRS and we're filling out the forms for the IRS, we can do this. Mm-hmm. And then I had to make sure that my valuation, we got the appraisal, and I worked out the what they were valuing, and I broke out the units, and I made sure my valuation of that property matched what it needed to and wasn't over excessive, which was great, because I didn't have to. I actually undervalued it because that's what she needed. Mm-hmm. And
that's awesome. That's a huge success story, and the team and the people you work with. Those are the stories. Those are the deals that many others would have lost. I think we went to 20 other agents, or somewhere along, not doing that extra work, or the lender in this particular situation who wasn't willing to be patient enough to let's see what the 1031, and they would have just said no, and the agent would have took their no. And
just said, we can't do it.
And can't do it. But having those people to call and that are doing this in the back offices that have been doing all that stuff for 20 years. That's one reason why I'm going to brag about Town Bank. It's one reason why Town Bank, because the average person's been there over 10 years. Many have been there to spend their entire career in this business. So when I have the squirrely one, they laugh. It's that's their laughter, because they're like, oh yeah, we've dealt with this type of stuff before. Right. It was 10 years ago, but let me call that person and see if we still get it done today.
Exactly.
So, Cindy, I appreciate you coming on. Anything you'd like to add?
I appreciate you having me. I do love what I do, and any new agents, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody ever has. And I feel helping each other, agents, we should be there for each other and offer our help and support and our knowledge.
Yeah.
And not keep it a secret.
Yeah. There's no doubt there's a fine line of those who are really producing in the business. Like I said, 75% did less than $2 million. I don't even what that income actually is. I'm sure half of those 75 probably aren't even going to go in the next year. They're just going to go find and that's part of the business. There's only, like I said, they say only 1-2% really make all the money, make a true career out of real estate. And so to share and raise the bar of the quality of service that every agent is doing, whether they're doing $1 million or $20 million, but to maintain that bar and the quality, you need to collaborate. Make sure those agents know how to fill out the contract correctly, make your life easier, that sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. And avoid any of that stuff you learned in the pre-licensing course that you can get sued for or arrested for.
Exactly.
Cindy, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting TracyHayesPodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at TracyHayesPodcast.com.